If your legs feel unusually heavy by evening, or your socks leave deeper impressions than they once did, or if your knees produce that faint crackling sound when you rise from a chair, most people hear the same explanation. That's just aging. But something important is often overlooked. Within your body exists a quiet structural network built largely from collagen. This natural framework supports your joints, tendons, cartilage, skin, and even the flexible walls of your blood vessels. Over time, that network changes. According to Harvard Health Publishing, the body's ability to produce new collagen gradually declines with age, particularly after 60. This shift is not sudden. It unfolds slowly, almost invisibly, yet its effects begin to surface in everyday movement. Stiffness that lingers longer, joints that feel less cushioned, recovery that feels less forgiving. A scientific review indexed on PubMed describes how older adults typically generate less new collagen while breaking down existing collagen more rapidly. That imbalance affects connective tissues throughout the body, influencing comfort, flexibility, and resilience. This does not mean your body is failing. It does not mean you need aggressive or complicated treatments. Often, it simply means your body may not be receiving enough of the raw materials required to maintain and repair its internal support system. Many people turn to supplements, hoping for quick relief, only to feel disappointed. But collagen itself is assembled from specific amino acids, vitamins, and minerals, nutrients that traditionally come from food, especially foods prepared in ways that are gentle, warm, and easy to digest. In this video, we'll explore 5 foods that quietly support collagen and joint comfort. They're ranked intentionally, so the most practical and sustainable option appears last. That final choice matters most because it can fit acidly into daily life, even when chewing feels difficult or digestion feels sensitive. Before we continue, take a moment to reflect. What if the support your joints need isn't missing at all? What if it simply hasn't appeared consistently on your plate yet? Food number 5, bone marrow. Rebuilding support from within. Bone marrow may sound old-fashioned, yet across generations, it was considered a foundational strength food, particularly for older adults. Bone marrow is the soft, nutrient-rich center found inside beef or lamb bones. When cooked slowly, it transforms into a smooth, delicate texture that is remarkably easy to eat. Long before modern supplements existed, elders valued marrow for the deep nourishment it provided without demanding heavy chewing or digestion. In daily life, bone marrow supports areas where many seniors first sense change. Joints that feel less cushioned, movements that feel more effortful, and recovery that stretches longer than expected. Marrow does not behave like a pain reliever. Instead, it nourishes the tissues that allow joints to glide smoothly and bones to remain resilient over time. From a nutritional standpoint, bone marrow contains beneficial fats, fat-soluble vitamins, and compounds associated with bone and connective tissue health. Scientific literature, indexed on PubMed, highlights how the bone marrow environment plays a role in skeletal integrity and cellular processes linked to tissue maintenance as we age. These internal processes influence balance, stability, and overall mobility. Incorporating bone marrow is simple. Large portions are unnecessary. A modest serving, once or twice per week, is typically sufficient. Many people roast marrow bones until soft, then spread a spoonful over warm vegetables or soft bread. Others simmer marrow bones into soups, allowing the nutrients to gently enrich the broth. Slow-cooked preparations are ideal because they create a lighter texture and are easier on digestion. There's often a sense of familiarity here. Many people recall childhood kitchens where soups simmered for hours, bones resting quietly in the pot, elders insisting that marrow was the most valuable part. Those traditions were not accidental. They reflected practical nourishment for bodies needing gentle support. Common mistakes include eating excessive amounts at once, marrow is rich, and moderation is key. Or cooking it too quickly at high heat, which can make digestion feel heavy. Slow and steady preparation works better, especially for aging stomachs. For older adults, the greatest benefit of bone marrow is subtle and cumulative. When joints begin to feel more supported and bones feel steadier, confidence gradually improves. Standing feels less hesitant. Walking feels more secure. This foundation prepares the body for the next food, which builds directly upon the same principle. Food number 4. Gelatin. Collagen made gentle. Gelatin is essentially collagen transformed by time and heat into a softer, more accessible form. Its texture is smooth, soothing, and often easier for aging digestion to tolerate. When chewing feels tiring or dense foods feel heavy, gelatin can feel like nourishment rather than effort. Gelatin originates from connective tissues that have been slowly broken down. When consumed, the body can more readily access amino acids, such as glycine and proline, key components involved in maintaining cartilage, tendons, and joint structures. This becomes especially meaningful when morning stiffness persists longer or when joints feel less forgiving after ordinary activities. Scientific reviews indexed on PubMed note that gelatin provides collagen-derived amino acids in forms the body can efficiently utilize. With age, collagen turnover slows, making efficiency more important than sheer quantity. Gentle delivery often matters more than large doses. Gelatin is also known for being relatively easy on the stomach. Many seniors notice fewer digestive discomforts compared with heavier protein sources. This can make consistent use more realistic, and consistency is essential. Collagen support is not about a single large intake. It's about providing steady, repeated signals that the building blocks are available. In daily routines, gelatin need not feel clinical. Some dissolve unflavored gelatin into warm tea or broth. Others prepare simple gelatin dishes using lightly sweetened juice, maintaining a soft, comforting texture. The purpose is not indulgence. It is regular nourishment in a form the body welcomes. There is often nostalgia attached to gelatin dedicated at zatsa, soft dishes served at gatherings. Foods chosen because they required little strain, these practices quietly respected the needs of aging body. Mistakes to avoid include assuming more is better, which may lead to bloating, or pairing gelatin with heavily processed sugars that counteract its benefits. Smaller portions a few times per week are generally more supportive. For older adults, gelatin's value is again understated yet meaningful. When movement begins to feel smoother and joints feel less irritated, trust in the body grows. That renewed trust becomes the bridge to the next food. One frequently misunderstood but critically important. Food number 3. Liver. Supplying what collagen needs to function. Liver is among the most nutrient-dense foods available, yet it is often avoided due to outdated impressions of bitterness or dryness. Properly prepared, liver becomes soft, mild, and remarkably supportive for aging physiology. Its importance lies not in collagen itself, but in the nutrients that allow collagen to be built and repaired effectively. Collagen synthesis depends on specific cofactors, including vitamin A, copper, and certain B vitamins, all abundant in liver. Without these, the body's ability to construct strong, functional connective tissue becomes less efficient, even if protein intake appears adequate. Research indexed on PubMed emphasizes the role of these nutrients in tissue repair and structural integrity. For older adults, this becomes increasingly relevant. Changes in digestion and absorption can make deficiencies easier to develop and slower to correct. Liver provides these compounds in highly bioavailable forms, meaning the body can recognize and use them with greater efficiency. Portions need not be large. In fact, moderation is ideal. Small servings once per week are often sufficient. Many seniors find chicken liver, PT or finely chopped liver incorporated into soups easier to tolerate than larger cuts. Gentle cooking methods improve both texture and digestibility. Initial resistance is common, yet when individuals notice improvements, like skin healing more readily, energy stabilizing, and joints feeling more supported, that resistance often softens. Liver's benefits are largely invisible, but profoundly enabling, because they allow other collagen-supporting foods to work more effectively. Common mistakes include consuming liver too frequently or preparing it in overly heavy, fried dishes that burden digestion. Light, slow-cooked methods typically yield the best results. For seniors, liver acts quietly behind the scenes, filling nutritional gaps that time gradually creates. And once those gaps begin to close, the body becomes better prepared for a food that delivers structural support in a practical form. Food number 2, sardines. Small fish, comprehensive supports. Sardines may appear simple, yet they provide a rare combination of nutrients, particularly relevant for aging joints and bones. Because sardines are eaten whole, including their soft bones and connective tissues, they deliver protein, calcium, vitamin D, and omega-3 fatty acids together in natural balance. In daily life, this combination supports areas many seniors care about most: steadier movement, stronger bones, and joints that feel less fragile. Sardines do not mask discomfort. They contribute to the structures beneath it. Nutritional research indexed on PubMed Associates diets, including small, whole fish with improved musculoskeletal outcomes, partly due to the body's efficient absorption of these nutrients. After 60, absorption efficiency can decline, making naturally integrated sources especially valuable. Sardines are also practical. Canned versions require no cooking and are soft enough for sensitive teeth. Many enjoy them mashed with olive oil, blended into soft vegetables, or stirred into soups. Small portions, several times per week, are generally sufficient. Mistakes often involve avoiding sardines due to flavor concerns or discarding the bones, which are precisely where much of the calcium resides. Choosing mild varieties packed in water or olive oil and serving them warm can significantly improve palatability. For older adults, sardines offer reassurance, accessible, affordable, and supportive. Yet even with all these foods working together, there remains one option that gently unifies their benefits into a single daily rhythm. Food number 1, collagen-rich bone broth, the daily habit that brings everything together. Bone broth is where many of these principles quietly converge. By now, you've heard about marrow, gelatin, liver, and sardines, each supporting a different aspect of the body's connective framework. Bone broth gently gathers these benefits into a single, warm, repeatable ritual that fits naturally into everyday life, especially for adults over 60. Bone broth is made by simmering bones slowly over many hours. Time and gentle heat break down cartilage, tendons, and connective tissues, releasing gelatin, collagen fragments, and valuable amino acids such as glycine, proline, and hydroxypyrin into the liquid. What remains is not heavy or complicated. It is soothing, easy to sip, and typically well tolerated by aging digestion. In practical terms, this matters more than it may first appear. Bone broth asks very little from the body. It requires no chewing. It rarely feels dense. It can be enjoyed in the morning when stiffness feels strongest, in the afternoon as a light source of nourishment, or in the evening when joints feel fatigued after a day of movement. Its simplicity is part of its strength. From a physiological perspective, aging bodies often benefit from nutrients delivered in forms that are both gentle and consistent. The body does not rebuild connective tissue in sudden bursts. It responds to steady availability. Bone broth offers precisely that: a quiet, repeated signal that supportive building blocks are present. Scientific discussions indexed in nutritional literature frequently note that collagen-derived proteins provide amino acids essential for maintaining connective tissue. While bone broth is not a medical treatment, it represents a traditional dietary source of these compounds, in a form many older adults find easier to incorporate than pills, powders, or dense protein meals. Importantly, bone broth aligns with how appetite and digestion often evolve later in life. Large meals may feel less appealing. Heavy foods may linger uncomfortably. Warm liquids, however, are commonly described as calming and restorative. This makes regular use more realistic. And realism is the key to sustainability. Using bone broth does not require perfection or culinary expertise. Some prepared homemade broth by simmering beef, chicken, or lamb bones with water and mild seasonings. Others rotate with high-quality store-bought options made from simple ingredients. Both approaches can be valuable. The objective is not strictness, it is consistency. Portions need not be large. 1 cup per day is often sufficient to establish a gentle rhythm. Sipped slowly, it becomes less of a strategy and more of a comforting routine. Over time, routines shape outcomes far more reliably than occasional extremes. There are, however, common misunderstandings. One is expecting bone broth to function like a switch. Drink today, feel transformed tomorrow. The body rarely works that way. Connective tissues respond gradually. Another mistake is consuming excessive amounts at once or adding heavy levels of salt, which may strain circulation or digestion. Moderation and balance remain essential. For older adults, the deeper value of bone broth is often psychological as much as physical. When joints begin to feel less fragile, when movement feels slightly smoother, confidence quietly returns. Standing feels less uncertain. Walking feels less guarded. That renewed confidence encourages activity. And activity itself further supports joint health, circulation, and balance. This creates a gentle upward cycle. Support leads to movement. Movement reinforces strength. Strength nurtures independence. And independence profoundly influences quality of life. Now, let's pause and place everything you've heard into a broader perspective. Aging is frequently described as decline, yet that framing can be misleading. The body does not suddenly lose its capacity for resilience. Instead, it becomes more selective, more sensitive, and more dependent on steady care. It asks for nourishment that is easier to use, easier to digest, and easier to repeat. The foods discussed today are not exotic interventions. They are deeply traditional. Marrow, gelatin, liver, small fish, and broth have appeared in ancestral diets across cultures for generations. Long before modern terminology existed, people recognized that certain foods supported strength, recovery, and comfort in later years. What changes with time is not the body's wisdom, but our relationship with it. Modern habits often drift toward convenience at the expense of nourishment density. Quick foods replace slow ones, packaged options displace simmered meals, yet aging bodies frequently thrive when we reintroduce what is warm, gentle, and structurally supportive. Another important truth is this: progress does not require doing everything at once. In fact, attempting too many changes can create stress, fatigue, and eventual abandonment. The body responds better to small, stable adjustments. Perhaps that means adding bone broth a few mornings per week. Perhaps it means including sardines occasionally. Perhaps it means rediscovering gelatin-based dishes or small portions of liver. The specific choice matters less than the consistency of care. Over time, subtle shifts often accumulate. Joints may feel less irritated. Morning stiffness may soften. Movement may feel more fluid. Even modest improvements can transform daily experience. Climbing stairs with less hesitation. Walking with greater ease. Rising from a chair with renewed assurance. These are not dramatic transformations. They are quiet restorations of comfort and trust. It is also essential to recognize that nourishment works best when paired with patience. Connective tissues rebuild slowly. Habits influence outcomes gradually. The goal is not urgency, but steadiness. When the body senses reliable support, it often responds in kind. And perhaps most importantly, supporting joint comfort is not solely about reducing discomfort. It is about preserving freedom, the ability to move through your home confidently, to enjoy walks, to participate in daily routines without constant awareness of stiffness or instability. Mobility is deeply tied to identity autonomy, and emotional well-being. Protecting it is less about chasing youth and more about sustaining capability. If today's discussion resonates with you, consider reflecting on one simple question. What is one gentle, realistic habit you could introduce that your body would welcome rather than resist? Not a drastic overhaul, not a strict regimen, just one consistent act of support. Because aging does not demand extremes. It responds to rhythm, to warmth, to nourishment offered patiently and repeatedly. In many ways, the body is still listening, still adapting, still capable of responding when given the right signals. And sometimes those signals arrive not through complexity, but through the quiet return of deeply supportive foods. There is something deeply reassuring about recognizing that the body does not simply wear out, but instead adapts to the conditions we create for it. Over the years, signals of strain, stiffness, and fatigue are not always declarations of failure. Very often, they are requests, subtle reminders that support, recovery, and nourishment may need to evolve alongside age. Many older adults describe a similar experience. Movements that once felt automatic begin to require intention. Standing up takes a second longer. Knees or hips feel hesitant in the morning. Recovery after activity stretches into the next day. These changes can feel unsettling, even discouraging. Yet, they're also entirely human. What matters most is not resisting aging, but understanding it. With time, tissues renew more slowly. Collagen turnover becomes less efficient. Muscles, joints, and connective structures still repair themselves, but they do so at a gentler pace. This slower rhythm is not a defect. It is biology adjusting to decades of use, adaptation, and survival. And this is where expectations quietly shape outcomes. When discomfort appears, many people assume something is wrong. They search for immediate fixes, rapid relief, dramatic solutions. But connective tissues are not governed by urgency. They respond to consistency, patience, and repeated reinforcement. Support is rarely built in a single moment. It is built in patterns. Small daily choices, warm meals, adequate hydration, gentle movement, sufficient rest accumulate far more powerfully than occasional extremes. The body does not require perfection. It responds remarkably well to stability. Consider how joints function. They rely on a delicate balance of lubrication, cushioning, structural proteins, and surrounding muscle support. When any part of that system receives less attention, less movement, less nourishment, less recovery, sensations of stiffness or fragility often follow. But the reverse is also true. When the system is gently supported, tissues frequently respond with improved comfort and resilience. Not instantly, not dramatically, but perceptibly, gradually, reliably. This is why the foods discussed earlier are valuable not as interventions, but as reinforcements. They work best when viewed not as cures, but as contributors to a broader environment of support. Bone broth, for example, is not powerful because of a single nutrient. It is powerful because it encourages a daily ritual of warmth and nourishment. Sardines are not supportive solely because of calcium or omega, but because they deliver structural nutrients in a compact, repeatable form. Gelatin is not beneficial merely for amino acids, but because it offers a texture aging digestion often tolerates comfortably. Even liver serves as a reminder that micronutrients quietly govern how effectively the body uses everything else. None of these foods function in isolation. They participate in a system, and systems thrive on rhythm. Beyond nutrition, movement itself becomes a form of nourishment. Gentle walking, stretching, light strength work. These do not wear down joints when performed appropriately. On the contrary, they stimulate circulation, reinforce stability, and signal the body to maintain supportive ties. Motion encourages lubrication. Muscle engagement protects joints. Balance training supports confidence. Confidence, in turn, influences willingness to move. This interplay between body and mind becomes increasingly important with age. When movement feels uncertain, activity often decreases. When activity decreases, stiffness increases. When stiffness increases, confidence declines further. Yet, even small improvements can interrupt that cycle. A slight reduction in joint discomfort may encourage a longer walk. A steadier step may restore trust on stairs. Less morning stiffness may invite gentle stretching. These changes may seem minor, yet their psychological impact is profound. Independence is not defined by dramatic athletic ability. It is defined by ease in ordinary actions: standing, walking, reaching, bending, carrying. Preserving that ease is one of the most meaningful investments in long-term well-being. It is also worth acknowledging that aging bodies respond differently to stress. What once felt trivial, skipped meals, poor sleep, prolonged inactivity, may now produce more noticeable effects. Fatigue lingers longer. Recovery slows. Stiffness intensifies. But again, the opposite holds true. Supportive routines produce clearer benefits. Regular nourishment feels more stabilizing. Adequate rest feels more restorative. The margin for improvement often widens, not narrows. Another quiet shift occurs in how progress should be measured. Youth tends to measure success in speed, intensity, visible transformation. Aging, however, measures success in comfort, stability, reliability, and energy sustainability. Feeling steady matters. Feeling capable matters. Feeling confident in one's own body matters. And these outcomes arise not from pressure, but from partnership with the body's changing needs. There is also wisdom in removing unnecessary harshness from daily habits. Extreme diets, aggressive exercise, rigid restrictions. These often create more strain than benefit later in life. Gentleness, consistency, and adequacy tend to produce more sustainable results. Warm foods instead of cold. Heavy meals, steady nourishment instead of long deprivation. Frequent light movement instead of prolonged sitting. Supportive rest instead of chronic overexertion. None of these are dramatic. All of them are powerful. Importantly, none require sudden lifestyle upheaval. They can be layered gradually, chosen realistically, adapted personally. The body responds far better to changes it can sustain than to those it must resist. And resistance, whether physical or psychological, is exhausting. One of the most liberating realizations for many older adults is this: you do not need to fight aging. You need to support adaptation. Strength in later years does not always resemble youthful strength. It appears as endurance, balance, coordination, joint comfort, and the ability to recover gracefully from effort. It appears as the confidence to move without constant fear of pain or instability. It appears as trust that the body can still respond. Trust that small habits still matter. Trust that improvement remains possible, because improvement is not reserved for youth. It is available wherever support becomes consistent. Even now, your body is continuously repairing, renewing. Cells replace themselves, tissues rebuild, signals adjust. This biological conversation never truly stops. But, like any conversation, it responds to what is offered. Warmth, nourishment, movement, rest, patience. When these signals become steady, the body often answers with greater comfort and resilience. Not because aging has been reversed, but because support has been restored. And perhaps that is the most important perspective of all. Aging is not solely about loss. It is about recalibration, a different pace, different priorities, different strategies for maintaining vitality. The goal is not to feel 20 again. The goal is to feel steady, capable, and comfortable where you are now. To rise from a chair without hesitation. To walk with assurance. To move through daily life with less friction and more ease. And while no single habit guarantees these outcomes, patterns of support profoundly influence the direction of change, which brings us gently to a final reflection. If one small adjustment could make your body feel even slightly more supported, if one daily ritual could improve comfort, confidence, or mobility, if one consistent choice could help you feel more at home inside your own body, would it not be worth exploring? Because the body rarely asks for perfection. It responds beautifully to consistency. As we grow older, the body does not abruptly lose its strength. It gradually changes the way it asks for support. Joints that feel stiff, movements that feel slower, recovery that takes longer. These are not simply signs of decline. Often, they are signals. Quiet messages that nourishment, rhythm, and care now matter more than intensity or extremes. Throughout this discussion, we explored a simple but powerful idea. Connective tissues rely on steady reinforcement. Collagen, cartilage, tendons, and bone are living structures, constantly renewing at their own pace. With age, that pace becomes slower, but it does not stop. And what supports that renewal? Not dramatic interventions, not harsh routines, but consistent, gentle inputs. Traditional foods like bone marrow, gelatin, liver, sardines, and bone broth have nourished human bodies for generations. They were never trends. They were practical solutions, warm, digestible, structurally supportive sources of the building blocks aging tissues continue to need. Equally important is the mindset surrounding change. You do not need to overhaul everything. You do not need perfection. You do not need urgency. The body responds best to patterns it can trust. A cup of broth, a nourishing meal, light, regular movement, adequate rest, patience with progress. Over time, small supportive habits can reshape daily experience. Stiffness may soften. Movement may feel smoother. Confidence may quietly return. And confidence is not a trivial outcome. It is deeply tied to independence, stability, and quality of life. Because aging well is not about chasing youth. It is about preserving comfort, protecting mobility, sustaining trust in your body. Even now, your body is listening, still adapting, still capable of responding to the signals you send. So perhaps the most meaningful question is not, how do I stop aging? But rather, how do I support my body through it? If this resonated with you, consider choosing just one gentle habit to begin something realistic. Something calming, something you can repeat without strain. And if you found value in this message, you might share it with someone who could benefit from the same reassurance. Because strength after 60, 70, or beyond is not a myth. It is simply supported differently.